Well, thank you to all of our awardees so far. Amazingly, I'm having a little bit of allergies here as well, but they seem to be under control. All right, so now I have the pleasure of introducing our Michael J. Wargo Exploration Science Award winner. This award is an annual award given to a scientist or engineer who has significantly contributed to the integration of exploration and planetary science throughout their career. So this year, this award will be given to Dr. Ben Bussie, who is with us today. But before I call him up here, I get to share a little bit about him. So as you know, Ben is a physicist and planetary scientist researching the moon's lunar poles. But before that, he earned his BA in physics at Wadham College and Oxford University and his PhD in astronomy from the University of College London. From there, he went to lead national and international research and instrument teams, including 2 successful NASA Virtual Institute teams, NLSI and SSERVI. He spent time at NASA headquarters as the HEOMD Exploration Chief Scientist, and then the Deputy Associate Administrator for Exploration for the new SEO in SMD. Now, he is the lead for APL's Lunar Surface Innovation Initiative activities for NASA's STMD. So he has supported all 3 of our mission directorates that we all work with in 7 years. So he must be a glutton for punishment. Prior to that, Ben was principal investigator of the Mini-RF radar orbiting the moon on NASA's LRO and deputy PI for the sister instrument that flew on India's Chandrayaan-1 lunar orbiter. He has an extensive variety of mission experience, including LCROSS, IHAT, RLEP or RLEP2, NEAR, Mars Express, SMART 1, and the Mercury and Venus sample return missions. He's currently a co-investigator on the Shadow Cam instrument that is scheduled to fly next month on Korea's KPLO. So he has been a key member of NASA's strategy groups and workshops, including LEAGUE, and he is heavily responsible for the creation of the lunar surface science workshops that continue today. He has conducted geological fieldwork in the volcanic terrains and was selected twice for the NSF and NASA Antarctic search for meteorites expeditions. Ben has worked in a variety of roles, training and developing PhD students, conducting planetary surface and atmospheric research, and can be credited with hiring several young career scientists who have become leaders in their fields. So I won't belabor his support for the wrong English football team, but I will gladly present him with the Mike Wargo Award. So Ben, please come. I will present.
Thank you. So I borrowed this that was done by the APL graphics department for as Rachel talked about. It's a graphic representation of a lunar base covering the 6 capability areas for STMD. I still think it's just a really cool image of what, when NASA says, what does the sustainable lunar base looks like? Ta-da! If you do that, we're sustainable. So I wanted to start by talking about Mike, who the award is named after. And I was thinking, he passed prematurely in 2013. And I'm thinking there's probably several people in the room, and sadly this will get more as years go by, who never actually were fortunate enough to know him. And so I thought it was important just to make sure people remember, the key role that Mike had to get us where we all are today. He was definitely the first and very vital bridge between the science and exploration communities when humans going back to the moon became serious. He very much believed in the synergy between the science and exploration. But also for those of us who were fortunate enough to have known him, he was very he was very personable. He would always give you his time if you needed to talk to him about something. And also he was a wonderful mediator. If there were teams meeting and there were disagreements on things, he was the perfect person to come in, and he'd have that smile, and normally a large venti cup of coffee, and he would fix it. And because I don't want to talk a lot, I'm actually sprinkled images that I really like throughout this talk, because I would rather look at these than listen to me, and I'm sure you would too. This is actually Wargo crater. I think it's the smaller one, top right. It's about 8.5 miles across, and it lies within Jewel T. And it's just an example of some of the stunning imagery that we've been fortunate enough to look at every day. So, given this is the moon talk, you get that, why is he talking about Mars? And so one of the things that I started years ago is I started a movie night at LPSC. And I would call it movie night. And after about 2 or 3 years, the people who come with me would call it bad movie night. And I've never understood this. It's still movie night to me, because it's had, such classics that I show here. And in fact, the definition for me now of a good, bad movie night is we'll come out of the theatre in the Woodlands, and someone who knew the mission was dangerous when they took it will come out and say, that's 2 hours of my life that I'll never get back. And I'm like, but it's called bad movie night. And they said, yeah, but not that bad. And occasionally a good one will sneak in, like Kingsman, and we'll all leave feeling slightly disappointed and cheated that it was a good movie. Moonfall is here because we didn't actually see Moonfall, but I got a text from Andrew Dombard, who's been a victim of this since it started. But last September, and he was like, hey, there's this terrible movie called Moonfall coming out. And I looked it up and I texted him back saying, great, it's out in February, it'll be perfect. And he jokingly texted back, if it's still in theaters, and it wasn't. About 3 weeks after it had come out. It was that bad. I've still not seen it, but I will. So we did Uncharted, which was actually, it bordered on too good. So horrible bosses isn't something that we would see, although would be appropriate. But that really got to the main crux of what I want to talk about, is that I have been very fortunate not to have horrible bosses, and that I have had excellent bosses in my career. And there's lots of them. So, your immediate reaction should be, my goodness, he can't keep a job. And that would be fair enough. So start off in chronological order. Obviously, Paul Spudis was more than just a boss. He was very much a personal and professional mentor. Owe him, can't list how much gratitude I owe him. He's the one that allowed me to do the moon, which I had always wanted to do. My PhD is actually on Venus. An anecdotal story there is my graduate school interview was the most relaxed interview I've ever had, because I sat down with John Guest and he was like, well, what do you want to study? And I had all these ideas about wanting to do a PhD in lunar resources and things. And he was like, yeah, that's nice. We're doing Venus here because I'm on Magellan. And I immediately thought, well, this isn't for me. And I was totally relaxed for the rest of the interview. And I wasn't going to take it. And then really fortunately, right at the end, he says, you do realize that, the skills that you learn as a PhD really doesn't matter what you study it on. And I was like, oh, so it's a yes then, if you'll have me. But I always wanted to do the moon, and I was fortunate enough. And I guess the moral of that story is you don't always get where you want to go the way you think you're going to get there. And there are multiple pathways for getting there. So I was lucky enough to meet Paul because he knew John Guest well. It was right before Clementine was happening, and it was fairly close to me finishing my PhD. And we went out for a drink, and we were just chatting. I explained that I'd always wanted to do the moon, and he offered me a postdoc. So at some level, this is all his fault. But I would say, with all due respect to the people in the room, I never met anyone that knew more about the moon than Paul, and in both breadth and depth. I worked for Mark Robinson, and I had what I would say about all these people is they're all my friends, and I really like that. And Mark is genuinely one of the cleverest people I know. He brought me on to work on NEAR, and we've worked together on various projects since. Mark is incredibly talented, and he isn't just talented academically, he's sickeningly talented. Like he's an incredible carpenter, and he builds bathrooms in his own house. It's like, can you just be bad at something? And the answer is no. The amateur chef here is Paul Lucy. I did pull this picture from the University of Hawaii. This is actually the picture the University of Hawaii used when he won his award last year. But I was fortunate enough to work with Paul, and Paul taught me that, you know, he builds instruments. He's one of, and there are several people in this room, and I learned that lesson in that understanding as much as you can, even if you're a scientist and not an engineer, but understanding how the data magically appear and what had to happen in order to get those data, I think makes you a better scientist for when you're analyzing it. Louise Proctor, I've been at APL 20 years, and she has had the misfortune to be my boss several times during that period. She even left APL, I don't think because she was my boss, and then she came back, and then she's my boss again. So I've never met anyone like Louise who can spin so many plates at one time and do it really well and not have any of them drop. And amongst the plates that she spins is the fact that she's a world-class scientist, and she's managed to keep that going. The three on the right, you can probably tell I pulled from their official NASA bio pages, because those are all NASA photographer pictures. And so Jason Crusan brought me down to headquarters, for which I've nearly forgiven him. And I don't think, you know, Jason was running the advanced exploration systems. I don't think he gets enough credit for actually how much I don't think the community saw, I should say, sorry, how much he supported the moon when it wasn't popular to do within NASA. I know it didn't fly, but Resource Prospector was something that he put a lot of his personal and professional energy into trying to get it flown. I think it has, you know, there is a link between Resource Prospector and then Viper. Steve Clark, top right, was also foolish enough to take me on right when SEO was first starting. And Steve's an amazing guy. He's done so many things. He was actually heliophysics division head. He then did years at OSTP, and he certainly, before coming back, Thomas brought him back to set up sort of the nascent commercial lunar side. And so the whole reason we have clips and I'll talk more about, you know, how exciting that is going to be for us. We have clips because of Steve. I owe him a real debt of gratitude. And then bottom right is Nikki Werkheiser, who is, you know, right now she's the STMD head of LSII, and she's who Rachel and I report to and try and keep happy. And again, not everyone in this room will know Nikki, but I wanted to give her credit in that Nikki is also a true believer of the value of human exploration and human exploration to the moon. And she sees how, you know, STMD can play an important role in this, and that getting the technologies flown, you know, for example, like solar arrays, etc., that are being developed, can actually also represent some of the initial infrastructure that will help us explore the moon. So I've only talked about my bosses here. You know, I could thank, there are lots of other, I was running out of space. You know, there are many other people who have helped me as I've gone along, and I'm very appreciative. This is Spudis crater. This is, wanted to show this. This is obviously just off from Shackleton Rim. And I always never quite know what shape to describe it. Is it an upside down pear shape? It almost reminds me of like a guitar pick. And I woke up early this morning in a panic about this talk, and I thought, I know what it should be. It's a driving range. Paul loved his golf, and I just imagine it's a perfect, we need commercial things on the moon. You have the tee box at the bottom where the little crater is. You knock your golf balls in, you avoid the water hazard, hopefully. You can have a little rover autonomously picking the balls up, and you get a prize if you reach the permanently shadowed regions. But I also wanted to show this, because this is actually a Moontrek image, and I often get asked, what's better, Moontrek or QuickMap? And that's like, what's your favorite child? The answer is, yep, got an answer. B, not saying, and C, it changes daily, in this case, depending on which particular thing is working or not working quite as well. And it certainly isn't user error. So I just have a few more images of things that I just like and I wanted to show. So I was fortunate enough, my first postdoc was at LPI, which was a great place to have as a first postdoc. And it's an RPIF, so a regional planetary imaging facility, which meant you could just go downstairs to the library and they had hard copies of everything that NASA had done. And it used to be so much fun just to go down. Now, it's lucky Clive isn't here because I went to the restaurant with Clive and he liked to hand me his readers for the menu because I am in full denial and do actually have a trip to the eye doctor next week. But this is a Hasselblad from Apollo 16. And probably not even those of you in the front row can see, it looks like a boring picture of the moon if such a thing could exist. But the reason I like this is when you zoom in carefully, that is the Apollo 16 LEM coming back. And so I'll go backwards too. And I don't know why, but I've always, this image always had a visceral reaction to it. And I just love how you had two human beings in something built by so many people had a hand in, coming home, and just the imagery itself is stunning. So I wanted to share that. I wanted to show one thing that I had done that I just, and so this was, because I want my last couple of minutes, because I'm sure I've only got 2 or 3 more, but you've not stood up yet, so that's all right. So see how far we've come in 25 years. And it was funny, I was talking to Wes Patterson last night, and I said, I'm going to talk about how far we've come in 15 years. And I paused and went, oh, no, 25. So that's senility kicking in. So this is one of the first things we did with the Clementine polar data. And I show this because you don't need, you make the most of what you have. And Clementine was the first digital imagery of the moon. And this is a UV vis frame. It was only 384 by 288 pixels, at either 250 or 500 meters. But it was such fun to play with. And so this is one of the first, when we first started to just see the lighting stuff. And then now, 25 years later, again, there's a Clementine frame. This is one of the recent LROC images of the day. And I just thought this was a stunning image. This is essentially looking from 0 degrees longitude down, and it shows the South Pole. It shows the ridge heading out between Shackleton and de Glache. And if I've got my bearings totally right, I think that little crater top right is actually the tee box for Paul's driving range. And so, I think it was Buzz Aldrin who used the term magnificent desolation right after he stepped onto the lunar surface. And I feel very fortunate that we get to do what we do, and they pay us. And so I think we're going to have a very exciting 3 or 4 years with CLIPS. We're going to start to get images from the surface. As David Kring said, we want images from orbit and from the surface. And I think we're going to have these amazing vistas once the CLIPS landers start to land, the rovers rove, and then hopefully soon the humans walk. So my last image is just a segue for me to get allergies. So this is actually an image from the JAXA spacecraft, and they flew a high definition TV, actually for education and public outreach. They're amazing videos to watch. It was back when HD was really brand new. And so this is the spacecraft flying towards the South Pole. You can see Shackleton, Malapert. You can actually see, if you look carefully, again, if I borrow Clive's readers, that you have Australia is upside down. So if it is faked, they've gone to a lot of effort. And that talks this afternoon. Of course, we didn't really go. Yeah. But I also like this for scientific reasons, because it showed back when we didn't have good topography data and couldn't do sort of the amazing simulation work like Air One does at Goddard, and Prasoon showed an amazing video yesterday, what we can now do. When I looked at it, I found it interesting that the places that receive the most sunlight and potentially are the places to go with humans, it's very subtle, the relative topography of these sites. It's not, so I always like the fact that there was sort of science from this. So this image also shows Antarctica, and that's my segue for my last minute, just to thank my wife, Kerry Corrigan, who is the Antarctic curator of meteorites. So I wanted to have an Antarctic picture hidden in there, and I always say we have, she's a real geologist. We have one real geologist in the family. I look at pictures. But, I couldn't have done this without her support and love, and I wouldn't have wanted to. And thank you.